there, welcome back to the Grow with Cara show. Today we continue our interview series with successful attorney marketers. We're taking a close look at what's working, what's not working so well, the specific steps these attorneys took to get to where they are. And remember, these are simple steps that you too can follow to get on a similar path to growth. Okay, let's dive right in. Today, our special guest is attorney Reza Torkzadeh. Reza is the founder and senior partner of Tork Law, a personal injury firm based in LA with offices around the country. The firm has successfully represented thousands of clients and obtained more than $500 million in judgments, verdicts, and settlements on behalf of their clients. And Reza is the author of the book, The Lawyer as CEO, Stay Competitive, Attract Better Talent, Get Your Clients Results While Building the Law Firm of the Future. We're super excited to have him here today. Welcome, Reza. Thanks for joining us.
Hey, thanks for having me, Cara. I appreciate it.
Yeah. So Reza, to begin, just tell us a little bit about your story. Why did you launch the firm in 2012?
Yeah. So, all throughout not high school, but law school, I really didn't know what I wanted to do after. I mean, I'd done internships and I had some legal jobs that gave me exposure to things that I really figured out that I don't want to do those things. And then I was introduced to plaintiff's work, and I thought that it was such meaningful work where you're able to do it on a contingency fee basis, where if you don't win, you don't get paid. And I just thought that the impact that could have on someone's life was really meaningful, and it was very, very powerful. And so for the first 5 years, I had a couple of partners, and we started a firm together. And then 10 years ago, and this is Tork Law's 10th year anniversary, I started Tork Law. And I wanted to do things sort of differently. I wanted to market differently. I wanted to service the clients differently than we had been doing for the 5 previous years of my practice in law. And, I just kind of wanted to do it my way. And I felt that it was the time and I was ready for it. And, I just did it, and it was the best decision I've ever made in my life.
Very cool. So are you targeting a particular slice of the personal injury market?
Yeah, it's the whole spectrum. I mean, there's no specialty, but it's your typical auto, premises liability type personal injury cases. We do a lot of wrongful death and catastrophic injury cases. We handle some elder abuse cases, but primarily I think it's the bread and butter of the auto and pedestrian and premises cases that we all see.
Reza, what's the size of your firm? How many team members do you have, attorneys and support staff?
So we've got 9 lawyers, and in total, it's 62 teammates.
And what has your revenue growth been like just over the years?
We've consistently, I'll tell you this, COVID happened and we all started freaking out, and, nobody knew what to expect. And we ended up having our best year ever in 2020. And consistently, we've seen about a 20 to 25% growth year after year. And we're on pace to have an incredible year this year. And I think it'll be closer to 30%.
Wow, that is incredible. So then what's primarily contributing to that rapid growth? How are most of your clients finding you now?
Yeah, I think it's 2 things. Number one, the revenue is really tied to the maturity of the cases that we have in inventory. So I think, with COVID and the slowdown and the court shutting down, that really slowed down our litigation department. And I think we're now seeing the end of that, which is really driving revenue for us. But in terms of where clients are finding us, primarily online, through our digital efforts. A lot of our cases are outside of our digital marketing efforts, whether it's a pay-per-click campaign or a remarketing campaign or some social media campaign that we're running. A lot of cases really are referred to us either by other lawyers, past clients, and surprisingly enough, we get insurance adjusters who send us cases and judges who send us cases, and so it's interesting. But I think the bulk of it really is our digital efforts. We are on TV. We're running some ads on TV. We do billboard, and we're always experimenting and trying to figure out how we can acquire the clients that we're looking for at a price that is really palatable in terms of cost per acquisition.
Sure. So take us through your digital marketing. What are you doing? How are you investing your marketing dollars?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think primarily when you look at what we're doing online, it's a combination of pay-per-click and these are all levers that we can pull and pull and push. And so just because pay-per-click might be working this month doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be working next month, or just because it's working today doesn't mean that it's going to work tomorrow. But that's a good percentage of it. We do a lot of display ads. We do a lot of retargeting, and we're sort of really focused now on our existing contact lists because over, as you can imagine, over a 10-year period of collecting this information, we're really able to go back and remarket to those folks that at one time may have come into contact with our firm. And as you know, Kara, PI marketing is probably the most difficult type of marketing you can do. I mean, we are marketing to people for events that have not yet happened to them. So it's really easy for a consumer to just ignore the ads that are not relevant to them. But what we try to do is stay on top of mind, stay memorable, and continue to come back. If you look at the cost of YouTube marketing right now, I mean, it's pretty inexpensive for the amount of eyeballs you get. If you look at the cost of Facebook and LinkedIn and Twitter, and you look at some of these channels and what it costs to really market, I think it ebbs and flows, but our strategy has always been try to get as much traffic as you can, as cheap as you can, and be able to follow your metrics. And I think that's a key takeaway, is know where every single penny is going and know how effective those pennies are, or how ineffective they are. And only then with the data can you really make the important decisions to drive up your effectiveness of your marketing.
So how are you tracking all of those various channels? Are you doing that internally? Are you working with an outside agency?
It's all done internally right now. With some of the agencies, we are testing with multiple agencies, whether it's TV or pay-per-click campaigns. They provide us reports, but we've got a staff that's solely dedicated to really getting us our numbers. And some of it's a manual effort because it just has to be. And some of it's really automated through some of the software that we've not only developed, but that we're using right now.
So you mentioned a few things: YouTube, social advertising, maybe Google Ads. Is there one right now that's performing best for you?
I think it depends on the campaign. I think Facebook is absolute gold if you're in a mass tour or you're trying to market to a mass event. I think Facebook remains the king. And I think if you can stomach the cost per acquisition, pound for pound, with some of these guys who are spending a fortune, I think pay-per-click on Google can be effective if done correctly. And the name of this game is really longevity. If you've got to know your budget, and you have to be able to make that budget last as long as you can. And maybe pay-per-click doesn't make sense. And for us, it didn't make sense for a long time. I'll tell you, last year, we didn't do a single dollar spend on Google AdWords. It was just too expensive for us. But it's okay today. And so I think it's really an exercise of looking at it every single day and reevaluating where your dollars are going.
Right. About what % of your revenues are you spending on marketing and advertising?
It's a lot.
Yeah.
I would say north of 10%.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, that's good. That's good. And so, when we talk about, so obviously digital is bringing in, some prospects for you. You also mentioned referrals. Let's go through referrals a little bit. How are you kind of nurturing those referral relationships, either with past clients or with professionals and other attorneys who are sending you business?
Yeah, great question. I'll tell you, I think above and beyond, the most valuable cases that we have represented clients on have been through referrals. I mean, by far, it's not even a competition. So it becomes that much more important to really nurture those relationships. And it's not, and it has to be authentic, right? And it has to be real. And it's not, I'll do this, you give me that. It's really building meaningful relationship with folks who then ultimately can see your work, can see your results, and can see that, like, we truly do care. We're not a volume mill type of firm where we're really not going to take care of our clients. And I tell our staff every single day almost that we're a customer service business that happens to practice law. And what that means is that the client experience has to be our priority and has to be the most important thing. And then ultimately, yeah, we've got to have the highest level of legal representation that can really make a difference in somebody's life. And so I think the relationships are really cultivated around being authentic with people, but then delivering results. And so the last thing you want is someone to refer you a case and then to hear from that person who we're representing now that we're not returning their calls or that the experience is less than a pleasant one. I mean, these are often the worst times of somebody's life and they're coming to us for help. And it's a great honor, and we need to treat it accordingly.
How do you recruit new referral sources, new attorneys to send business?
Yeah, I mean, look, I think the best way has always been give without expecting anything in return. And, my sort of what I've been doing is really talking to young lawyers who reach out to me, and I actually take the time to speak with them or go to lunch with them and really try to mentor them in a meaningful way that can help their new practices. And we now refer out the majority of the cases that come to our firm because we're just at a size and at a payroll level where it doesn't make sense to have staff working on some of the smaller cases. And we're referring those cases out to some of the newer and younger lawyers who we're going to do a great job really making those cases work. But it's just, I think, taking advantage of those opportunities. When folks come to me for help, I actually take the time to invest in that person without expecting anything in return. And if we do get a referral from a defense attorney or an insurance adjuster or a judge, it just means that everything that we have held ourselves up to, those standards, actually make a difference. And so I think if you're doing meaningful work and you're holding yourself to a higher standard and you're doing it in a meaningful way where the community can see that, a tremendous amount of effort and resources go into a lot of our volunteer programs and a lot of the things that we do in the community. And I think people recognize that and see that. And then ultimately, they want to work with those folks. They want to work with people who are actually doing meaningful things. And so we're not just saying we care about our community, to get cases. We're saying we care about our community and we actually go out and make the investment in time and money to really help the community in many different ways that are not even related to personal injury or expecting a case in return.
Tell us a little bit about the community involvement. What type of events or what types of things are you doing?
Yeah, so I'll tell you, like a great example is when COVID first happened. Nobody knew what to expect. Everything was shut down. And the first thing I heard that was shocking to me was that the hospitals didn't have PPE equipment and they didn't have masks and they didn't have gloves. And I mean, how could that be? And so one of the things that we did very early on is we were able to procure several 100,000 masks and gloves.
Wow.
And part of a community, our outreach was to go identify the hospitals that didn't have this equipment and deliver it to them. Has nothing to do with personal injury, has nothing to do with cases. It just has to do with not being full of shit when you say you care about the community and now actually showing what we mean by that. And so did we ever get a case from that? No, I don't think so. But we did what it did do is I think it really rallied our troops, rallied our teammates to say, wow, the work that we do here at this firm goes beyond just representing clients and making a difference in their lives, but it's making our communities safer. It's making our communities better. And it's something that I'm passionate about, that I've committed myself to from day one of starting this firm when it was just myself. Out of a spare bedroom and no money. And it's something that will stay with us for as long as tort law lasts. This is something that's meaningful and important to us. And I think it really motivates and kind of rallies everyone around a meaningful cause that everyone could be behind.
Yeah, I can feel the passion when you talk about it. It's really cool. So bring us back to those early days a little bit. You talked about, running the firm out of a spare bedroom. What were the early growing pains? What were those early challenges and how did you overcome that and really start bringing clients in those early days?
Great question. I mean, the biggest challenge in the early days was financial. It was money. I didn't have any money. And it was really running the firm off of credit cards. It was borrowing money from friends. And it was very difficult to do that. And it was a difficult time, but I loved what I was doing and I loved my clients and I loved the work. And it didn't feel like work more than anything else. It felt like a calling and I was meant to do this. And so I think the biggest challenge early on was really the money and having the resources to grow and invest and reinvest and advertise. You know, I couldn't compete and still today, like I don't compete dollar for dollar with our competitors. And as you know, Kara, being in Southern California, this might be the most expensive and competitive personal injury market in the country. So you know what that looks like. Yeah. But early on, I would reach out to lawyers, I would meet with doctors, and I literally took on every single case that came in the door. I didn't care if they were at fault. I didn't care if we have something in California called Prop 213, where you don't get pain and suffering even if you weren't at fault for the crash. I took those cases, but what I did is I really built those relationships with the clients. And I'll tell you, we have recovered millions of dollars for clients who then want nothing to do with us because the experience wasn't good. And some of these smaller cases that I took early on that really weren't profitable for the firm, that made a difference, right? A small difference, a couple $100 to the client maybe. Those clients who I spent the time with, who appreciated it and truly valued it, have been my greatest referral source of family and friends, because to them, I was the lawyer that was responsive. They have my cell number and they call and they felt like I cared, and because I truly and genuinely did care. And so it's not the dollar amount. I think it was really just how you make your clients feel. And then ultimately, like, you think about people and human beings, like, we all want to have these meaningful relationships. We all want people to genuinely care and be interested. And so if you build a culture that really revolves around that, I think those growing pains can be a lot easier in terms of client acquisition. And, you know, I knew early on that if I was going to start a firm, it was really going to either be made or broken on my ability to get cases and to attract clients. And so I just focused on delivering something that was different than just, hey, what's your ad budget for this month?
Yeah, absolutely. So tell us about your first hire. I always like to ask about that. When did you decide, okay, I need some help. I can really scale this thing. We're getting some cases in.
Yeah, great question too. It was about, I want to say it was about a year in, and I was doing everything, right? So I was answering the phones, I was scanning the mail, I did everything. I was trying the cases. And my first hire was an assistant type position. I would just realize that if I wanted to grow the business, I also couldn't be doing everything. It was impossible. And I just didn't have time. At the time, I just had my first baby, and time was getting more limited. And so I hired my first assistant, and then very quickly after that, hired a marketing type / operations individual who is still with me today and who's now our COO. But those two hires were very scary to make for me because they were expensive. And so what I would so focused on was their annual salary and their annual pay, as opposed to, well, it's not like you have to write a check for that today. I mean, it's broken over time and things happen. But I will tell you, it was incredibly amazing to see what delegation and proper delegation can do for my time. And today, where we are now, it's the people that have made the difference. It's all of these hires and people that we've brought into the firm that have really got us to where we are. And if it weren't for these, I call them rock stars, I call them just A+ players. If it wasn't for them, we wouldn't be where they are. And so for those who are gun shy about hiring. I think you should be, because you want to make sure you're hiring the right people. And I write about this in my book, and I think there's a story in there that's very telling and could be very helpful for young lawyers, or even for lawyers that have been around for a long time and who want to really look at their culture and their hiring practices. But find the right people, and don't make desperate hires. But and when you do find those right people, you hold on to them, and you show them your appreciation. And there's different ways of showing appreciation, just not just tied to money, but it's about empowering them, and empowering them to become leaders themselves, and take on responsibility. And I think at the end of the day, if the monetary reward is there and the meaningful work is there, that's when the real magic can happen with teammates.
As you grow, as you've expanded across the country, how do you maintain that client first culture that you're referring to?
Yeah, and I think it's just day in, day out focus on the customer, right? These are customers. They are clients because we're professionals, but they're also our customers. So when they're used to shopping at Amazon and having their stuff delivered that night or the next day, and they're used to Apple products, and they're used to Starbucks having your coffee ready before you even get there, they're used to that and they're accustomed to that. And so as lawyers and law firm owners, I think we really need to remember that we can't be left behind, because I think historically as lawyers, we've been so slow to adopt technology, so slow to adopt these ideas and theories that are applicable in almost every Fortune 500 company. Why not a law firm? Why are we any different? And so, yeah, I mean, I think at the end of the day, your clients are your number one responsibility, and for many reasons, not just professionally, but ultimately, they are the ones that are going to make or break how you do for the next 5 or 10 years.
Yeah, absolutely. Reza, why did you write The Lawyer as CEO? Why is helping other attorneys important to you and to the firm?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. When I look back and at all the mistakes that I've made in this firm as a leader, I looked in the market. I mean, there's no how-to guide, right, on how to run a law firm. And they don't teach you how to run a law firm. They don't teach you how to be a business owner in law school. It's just, they don't even teach you how to practice law in law school. So when you think about that, it's kind of like just learn by fire and chaos, which is what I was doing for many, many years, to the point where this baby of mine that I had grown and built, and we were successful, but internally we were not. We didn't have a proper culture. I think that I look back and said, well, what would I have wanted when I first started? What could have shortcut this path for me that took 10 years to get to where we are? And it was 2 reasons. Number one, I wanted to share those mistakes, because we're so used to plaintiff lawyers talking about how great they are and all the verdicts and all their wins. We never hear anyone talking about the struggles. So I thought that was really important and meaningful to do. And selfishly, it was an exercise in reflection for myself. And it was an exercise of vulnerability and sharing some of these stories. But I think the result for me was very unexpected. I didn't expect to be hearing from lawyers from all over the country say, you must have been in my head. You must have been in my office. How do you, and not a day goes by that I don't get messages like that. And so that's been really inspiring to see and do. But books have been, very transformational in my life. And I love books. And I think the purpose of this book is if it can give someone one spark or motivation or inspiration to either start their own firm because that's what they've been thinking about doing, or reevaluate what they're doing with some of the struggles that they have right now. And if I can inspire just one person, then I think that has served its purpose.
Yeah, I mean, that's why we host this show every week too. It's really cool what you're doing. Reza, what's your approach to social media? I'm curious. So the firm is @TorqueLaw on Instagram. You have nearly 11,000 followers. Is it a sizable lead driver for the firm?
Yeah, I think it is. And I think you have to do it right. And it's interesting when you look at law firms and how they're running their Instagram account, for example. I'm maniacal about this stuff. And I'm always trying to figure out ways to be different and ways to engage. It's not an easy thing to market a personal injury law firm on social media and genuinely have the interest of the consumer. It's not an easy thing to get folks to engage when you think about the topics we're discussing. And so our approach has kind of been split 50-50, where we're talking about really what the firm does, the types of cases, and we find that to be not effective at all. 10 things to do after an accident. I don't find that to be effective. They're the least engaged posts, and I don't think they really drive anything. And I think the most effective stuff that we've done has been the relatable posts and the relatable stories. What are the things that really are meaningful to folks who are dealing with them every single day? I saw the 11,000 followers today. We've gained 1,000 followers just in the last week and a half because we're doing a giveaway for Bad Bunny concert here in LA.
Oh, nice.
And that's been a way for us to at least capture a larger audience. Now it's our responsibility to provide them with content that is actually interesting and content that they're going to want to engage in. And so we're working on some really exciting stuff that I think is going to be different. I don't know that anyone else is doing it on social media, and I think we're getting ready to roll it out before the end of the year. But I think the approach should be, we have not perfected this, and we're still trying and testing things out, but I think the approach should be, make content that is, digestible, something that people are going to want to see and hear, not, the 3 things not to do after a slip and fall accident.
Right. Tell us how you're structuring that giveaway so that, you're able to get, you said 1,000 plus followers in the last week?
Yeah. Well, like most giveaways on social media, they require you to take some action. And one of those actions is to make sure you're following our account. And, as a result, now, we've got this influx of followers, but there's other things you have to do. And then you got to register, and, it's a challenge. It's not as easy as putting up a post and saying we're doing a giveaway. It's quite a challenge. We've got probably half a dozen fake Torque Law Instagram accounts out there now. And, it's an overwhelming response. I don't know how many comments there are. I wouldn't be surprised if it's several thousand. But yeah, it's a logistical challenge, and we've got, thankfully we've got the staff. We have, I think our marketing team is probably north of 11 people now. Wow. And we've got the folks that are really dedicated to watch this stuff and watch it carefully. And, I think the lesson to me from day one of the firm to where we are now is, you should be looking at, these tasks and these responsibilities, not as one person really handling everything, because it's absolutely overwhelming. It's finding the person who's going to be responsible for that one thing and making sure that they're accountable and truly responsible for that.
How much of your time personally are you spending on marketing and advertising and social media?
The actual doing of it, not a lot, because we've got staff that's way better at that. Like the actual content creation and the posting, I don't do it all. But half of my time, I would say, is spent looking at reports, looking at opportunities, analyzing the data that we're getting. What is our cost per acquisition? I mean, I think everybody needs to know that, from what source, which office. And so I'm probably spending about half of my time really focused on that.
Wow, that is not typical, right? For most of the attorneys that I talk to,
Absolutely
right?
not.
Yeah. So when you hear attorneys say, oh, I just don't have time for marketing, I have pressing client matters that are taking precedence, what do you say to that when they're looking to grow their firm?
Well, and you don't have to do it, but I say to them, like, there's nothing more important than your next client, right? I mean, as a business, that's your most important client, is the next one. And so if the lawyer doesn't want to do it, then it's their responsibility. If it's their firm, then it's your responsibility to hire someone who can focus on that full time. And I totally get it. I mean, there's lawyers that want a lawyer, and that's totally fine, and as they should. But if you're a business owner and you've got people relying on you, then you need to really think about the future and the future growth of your firm and where you want to go. And so the question I asked myself 5 years ago when I was failing as a lawyer, as a leader, and I was absolutely letting my teammates down and absolutely letting their family down, I looked in the mirror and said, look, if I was the CEO of a Fortune 500 public company, how long would I have lasted in that seat? And my response was not very long. And so if you're a lawyer business owner and you don't want to do the marketing portion of it with your own time, then it's your responsibility to really hire someone to focus on that for you.
Do you have any advice for hiring? So if it's an outside agency, if it's, if you're looking to maybe even just start with a VA, what's your hiring advice?
Yeah, I mean, do it. Just get started. And the big piece of advice, and I've included this in the book, is don't blind hire. And what do I mean by blind hire? Is you put up a job post, you get 100 responses and people who are interested, and then you look at the resumes. There's no way to tell the difference between resumes, and you pick one out. Maybe they work for a competitor of yours, so you're assuming they know what they're doing, and you're assuming they're good at what they do, and then you hire that person. Don't do that. Blind hiring and desperate hiring, I think, have been the biggest mistakes I've made in the firm, because those people come in and you really don't know anything about them. You don't know what's driving them. And so set up your core values of who you are as a person, as a law firm. Who is your law firm? What are they? What are the things that are important to them first? Put them on paper, identify what those things are. And then when you're hiring, make it a process where you're weaving in those core values, and that, you're very clear. These are the people that you want in your firm, who believe in radical authenticity, who believe in growth mindset, who believe in respect for others. I mean, these are the core values. And then you need to have your vision and have it down on paper and integrate that in your recruiting and retention program, because I can tell you the fastest way to creating a toxic work environment with no culture at all, no growth. And if you want to spend your time putting out fires internally with staff, then blind hire, go ahead. But if you really want to build a meaningful organization that has culture and purpose with a group of people that you really love to work with every day, then be really intentional about your hiring process. And instead of how I used to do it, which was looking for any reason to hire this person, I now we look for reasons why not to hire somebody. And, we give personality tests and cognitive tests and assessments, and we have them do a virtual interview before they ever even talk to somebody. And, these are all things that you can automate. We have a full-time person that does it for us. We have a full-time recruiter now, so it's a little bit easier to manage that process. But it could be something as simple as including in the job post not to apply on that job post, right? Don't apply through this job post. Instead, if you're interested, for us, it's to call a phone number and hear a message and follow the instructions. It could be send an email to this email address. Don't apply through this. That way you're getting rid of the blind appliers, right? We're just asleep applying to every job that's out there. You don't want those people in your firm anyways.
Excellent advice. Don't blind hire. Absolutely. Reza, is your team remote?
We are.
Are there any challenges that go along with managing a fully remote team?
Okay, yeah. So the only people that are in office full time are reception staff. So they handle the incoming mail, the outgoing mail, and everything else that goes on in person. Where if you're sitting in Las Vegas and you work for Torque Law, you can't do. There are challenges, but I will tell you, we went remote when the shutdowns happened, and given the systems that we had already in place, the productivity tracking, our KPI report that comes out on every Monday, because we had those tools already in place, it was really easy for us to evaluate whether or not remote work was effective or not. And I'll tell you, the folks that were lazy in the office were lazy at home, and the folks that were lazy at home were lazy in the office. I don't think it makes a difference. The challenge that we have, and I think the thing that I miss the most, is really being together with the rest of the team. And we'll do these Zoom meetings and the all hands, and we'll do our monthly happy hours. And those are really fantastic, and we get to spend some time together. But the real value you get from maybe overhearing a conversation the training that you can get from listening to a conversation. You lose that when you're remote, and that can be invaluable. So I think for us, we're not coming back. I think we're going to be a remote law firm, period. And we have offices. And so if the staff wants to go in 1 or 2 days a week to meet with the rest of their team, they can do that. But I think as a policy for the firm, I don't think we're coming back. I think the benefits far outweigh what we're losing.
Yeah. We went through a very similar situation where during the pandemic, we're all remote now. And, there are lots of advantages. I certainly am there with you with, kind of losing that collaboration and that impromptu, it just that culture. It's hard to kind of to keep that intact. But yeah, I agree. Reza, what does future growth look like for the firm?
We've been on such just an upward trajectory, and I think growth continues both with the staff in terms of hiring and hiring just these all-stars that we're able to recruit. So growing the number of staff, I think, is meaningful for us because we're then able to service more clients. And I think our marketing, not just in terms of budget, but the effectiveness of the dollar that we're spending. And so for me, the driving factor would be lowering our cost per acquisition of a case, but increasing the volume of the types of cases that we want. Mm-hmm. And, and it's an everyday exercise, and it's an everyday exploration. And like I was saying, I mean, no 2 days are the same with any marketing source. You can have great days and bad days. I think you have to let things give it some time and be willing to take the risk and the major investment it takes to just be competitive if you're going out to compete in some of the same channels that all of us are competing in.
Right. That's one of the reasons why I love your Monday KPI report. It sounds like a really effective way of keeping your finger on the pulse of what's happening that can be changing so quickly and pivoting quickly. So before we wrap up, Reza, I always like to ask if a lawyer watching only has time to adopt 1, maybe 2 of the marketing tips that you shared today, what would you recommend? Okay,
so I relate this to marketing, and I know it sounds hokey pokey. I used to say it sounded hokey pokey when people outside of the legal industry who are business leaders would tell me, but establish your core values, your 5 or 6 things that really make you who you are, because then you can use that to drive everything else that you do, even your own marketing. So that would be like the number one thing, like identify who you are, put it on paper, share it with the rest of the firm, share it with the people that you're potentially going to hire. And then just be authentic in the translation of that in your marketing, right? And so if your firm, you see some of these guys out of Texas, like, they've got a hammer and they're smashing windows and the great gorilla in that. And like, that's all fine and great if that's who you are, right? So be authentic, be genuine. People respect that a lot more. And I think that your marketing will be a lot more effective if you're just authentic in who you are.
Find your voice, be authentic, be genuine. Excellent advice. Okay, Reza, thank you so much for sharing your experience with us today. It was a sincere pleasure. Thank you so much.
Oh, thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Reza shared a lot today, but let's boil it down. Here are the key takeaways I see from his interview. 1, somebody in the firm has to focus on marketing. It's best if it's you, the owner of the firm, but if you'd rather be a lawyer than a CEO, then someone capable in the firm has to be its marketer if the firm is to grow, right? The faster growing owners I've interviewed all are spending half or even more of their time on marketing, just like Reza. Number 2, the marketing has to be authentic. If you're a sort of life of the party type, your marketing should be fun and can push the limits. But if you're a quieter person, then use an educational, more helpful approach. Both can perform equally as well if consistent with who you are. Find your voice. Number 3, remote can work for a large law firm. It's working for Reza's team of 62, and he's finding the benefits of a remote team really outweigh the disadvantages. And lastly, number 4, being customer service oriented pays, for you receive more client referrals. Those leads cost nothing. They're rarely sort of lawyer shopping, and they're less likely to be difficult.
The benefits compound when you're able to establish meaningful relationships with your clients, right? A big, big thanks to Reza for his time and knowledge today. It was a great session. And thanks to all of you for tuning in. Join us for another episode of the Grow with Cara show happening very soon. Take care. Bye-bye.